Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 4. The other prodigal daughter returns. Hey, it is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland, letting the dust settle just a bit on all the recent Trek episodes and headlines. So, instead of another hot take or quick take, you get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Hey, look, I have been authoring, editing, interviewing, witnessing, commenting, archiving, dot connecting, and, fanning Star Trek for a while now. And I just want to say, something borrowed, something green is, I don't know what it is about this season. These are just rolling off the assembly line. Each of these episodes are so great. Look, we get a backstory. We not only get a backstory when the character's here with Tendi, but we get really canon stuff here about Orion. I mean, in some ways, it's almost like, the prodigal daughter. Remember Ezri Tegan going home and we find out all about mainstream Trill Society, oh no, and her family. It's like that. And then a mashup with Billups's Where Sleeping Fountains Lie, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie, right? All about his backstory and his planet, but where his planet wasn't really an old school Star Trek world. I mean, come on. Orion goes back to Genesis. No, I don't mean that Genesis. I mean the Genesis of Star Trek. It goes back to the cage. And yes, as everyone keeps pointing out, we've never been to Orion itself. There was one little bit there, the Attashake Center that Tendi sees in a holodeck for about 5 seconds. And this blends in with that. We're finally at Orion. Who knew that it would be Lower Decks to take us there? And in the best Star Trek tradition, it's all because of a wedding, or a mystery, or a mystery wedding. Okay, look at this episode's kudos. First off, the director, Bob Suarez. This is his 7th title to direct. He did 3 apiece in seasons 1 and 2, was absent last season, and now here he is back. Even more, and this got right past me, the writer for this one is Grace Parajani. Yes, who did Hear All, Trust Nothing, the DS9 story of last season, which was Trek-rich enough. But it got right past me. Grace Parajani was Grace Para from Larry Wilmore's O Show, The Nightly Show. Nightly was her bit. I remember her from that show, from being a panelist. She was awesome. And now to find out that she's obviously a Trek fan, how did she get this gig? Okay, well, she's also a writer-producer on Solar Opposites, which is Mike McMahon's other show, so she may have had an in here. But the staff is not supporting her. The consultants aren't supporting her. She's clearly a Trek fan, I'm going to go out on a limb and say. And this episode is so rich with Orioniana. All these names, all these characters, from the teaser ship to everybody on the planet. I just wonder how many of these Dearica, right? I wonder how many of these names are personal homages. We'll have to let time go by to get some of that. Do a little research, though. Niall, the wannabe groom of Dearica, is her recent husband's name. So I bet there's more where that came from. Anyway, belated welcome to Star Trek, Grace. Okay, little things, big things. And how can you not be dominated in this episode with all things Orion? I just laughed out loud at Plunder Sorter as a job. That was hysterical. Belly dancer outfits as part of the wedding party, of course. I love that they just embraced it. The way every part of diversity canon crams that we've had over nearly 60 years of Star Trek, Lower Decks just says, yes, I meant to say that. And the fact that Orions have not been exactly the most fleshed out race, species, and culture we've had here, just totally on the techno side, right? The teaser we see swooping in an Orion interceptor. So thank you. That's from Enterprise Borderlands, which, Enterprise was previously the series where we got the most Orion backstory, if you can believe it. Yeah. And look at the approach to Orion, our first look at the planet itself. And there on the left is a barge, just like Herod Sod's barge. Notice, though, that there's a space station in orbit of Orion, too. These aren't backward people. They have to be. They have to be a work-capable species. They're just not Federation material. But yeah, sure, we're learning bits about Orion here. The daddy-daughter dagger dance? Fun alliteration, right? Okay, bridal kidnappings are a thing. And the murder bug drinking game. Okay, what is it about lower decks? It's all about the insects. Going back to the critters, going back to the spider cows from the pilot. We just had the skittery decapitating spider last time. Whatever it is about critters, especially little critters, and lower decks, I'm here for it. And I love it, the approach of our heroes when the first time they meet the parents, they're on a litter, right? They're on the platform chair. They walk up. Tendy's parents are the same way. How long have they been standing there in the air, stationary? How long have they been up there, just standing there? Oh, those Orion servants. But beyond that, this episode really, really dives into the Orions, their culture, and also binding up all the weirdness of the sprawling Trek franchise. Look, between all the eras of live action makeup when anyone dared to give us an Orion, including those light green Orions from the animated series in the 70s, here we go. This episode just embraces it all, right? In the time-honored modern tradition of, again, looking at all the different wacky appearances of any one species on camera, instead of trying to explain them away, we have all those Andorians, we have all those Tellarites, we have all those Klingons, we have all those Romulans, and yes, we do have apparently 47 different shades of Orion skin green, from the lightest to the darkest. So there you go. Why not? That's an easy one. Embrace the species diversity. Embrace the some are metal-wearing yahoos and some are enjoying their full head of hair. But even more than that, look, we've had this long-running debate. We had the slave girl, Vena's slave girl model from The Cage. Then we get Enterprise, which, remember, is technically 100 years before, but we supposedly learn that Orion women are actually running things. They're the dominant gender in the culture. They're using pheromones to manipulate the males at times. And yet we've got a female up for slave auction? Or is she secretly running things then with the big, bulky male Orions in Borderland? I mean, what's the real deal here? Well, once again, leave it to lower decks to plunge in and say, not all women have the pheromones, not all women with pheromones use it, but definitely the big picture here is, one way or the other, this is a matriarchy. The women are the dominant, the females are dominant, whatever the gender couple looks like, or number even. And the men come off, for the most part, as just doofusy, I don't know, trust fund frat boys of more stature or less, given the situation. I mean, some of these lines at the wedding, he looks radiant, right? And she swung her husband across the threshold. That's amazing. This whole Errol Flynn, Captain Blood kind of aspect to Orion, assassin pirate life. Pirate, get it? But even more so, on a spiritual, philosophical level, did you hear what D'Erica uttered once when it looked like catastrophe was about to befall them? The goddess chooses our fates. The goddess chooses our fates. So not only do we have a matriarchy in all forms of the word, we've got a matriarchal single deity that they look to. It explains so much. He looks radiant. I love that. Not only that, we have double talk. Double talk that would be mud android deadly, right? Orions don't lie. You don't? Nope, we do all the time. Of course, if you're going to be great thieves and pirates, it's going to be part of your skill set anyway, right? Again, somewhere along the way, we do get that Archer reference full bore. Yeah. Not all the women have pheromones, like Tendi, and not all the women with pheromones use them. They're obviously a fact. No less than Mariner reminds us, Starfleet had to come up with that story, because how else could it explain the way some captain got taken out by some showgirls? 200 years before, but hey, it's another meta moment that I love. And of course, they're talking about Archer in Bound. One more thing, all that lovely Orion alphabet font gibberish, it actually is a one-to-one match with our English font. So any day now, all that lovely Orion signage is going to pop out and be translated. You know where you'll find it. I just don't have the time right now. Now, let's note that part of this episode actually was not about anything Orion. Yeah, in the best old school TNG A story, B story, where the B was like 10% of the entire show, yeah, we get the boys back home on the ship and actually a little educational stripe here. Yeah, they're in a Mark Twain holosuite, right? A holodeck program. And yes, Mark Twain was part of Time's Arrow, right. But the steamboat, the riverboat that they're on, the A.B. Chambers, that was an actual riverboat. An actual riverboat that the real Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain, where he picked up that phrase, worked on the riverboat. It's one of the riverboats he worked on for about 6 months as a young man, right on the eve of the Civil War. Thank you, Lower Decks. It also wound up in a very famous river wreck that wound up on the front page of the New York Times, 1856. And yes, if you're a fan of that Newman and Redford classic, The Sting, or even if you're not, that was indeed Scott Joplin's ragtime classic, The Pineapple Rag, that you heard playing, tinkling the ivories as the riverboat approached, and we opened our Mark Twain hologram scene. It's about 50 years too late in real period time, but probably a lot less problematic than some Stephen Foster lyric, you know what I mean? And if you feel like you've heard of the Chalnoth before, you have. Isak was one of the characters that was kidnapped by what turned out to be that fake female Bolian with the hair back in TNG's episode Allegiance, along with the Mazarian, Mika Zarian, and Picard. Yeah, that was a Chalnoth. We don't know if he too was from South Chalnoth, y'all. Okay, I do have some questions. Was that a rhinoceros I saw being domesticated on Orion as the shuttle came in and being ridden? Were those special purple Orion rhinoceri? Because, you know, if they were native Orion rhinoceri, they'd have to be some shade of green, right? Oh, and Orion aquifers? Okay, Talin. And then in our character list here, oh my God, starting with, I don't know, Dorita, right? Tendy's mother, the latest in a long line of famous characters having mama problems. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Loxana. Thank you, Marina and Majel. The whole crew, even though they have no lines, did you notice when Shax is trying to subdue the Shalnoth inside that steamboat hologram, he's flipped, and the next time we see a security officer, it's Kayshawn? Just a little thing that I thought was adorable. Shax is out of commission, and we get them both in the picture. But no, obviously, Tendi gets the lion's share of the episode this time. And yes, as Mariner points out in that Lower Decks meta way, this is more backstory than we've ever had before. Still waiting on that Rutherford show. Look, we knew that Tendi was trained in spy skills, but oh my God, we didn't know that she was a prime assassin. We got her to give that up. But of course, now it makes sense. That crazy passion she has for science is all of her DNA, that barely coiled spring of potential energy that should be out there shooting down any client's enemies, cutting them down. Instead, it's just cutting down the frontiers of science. Passion is passion, no matter how it's applied. And she went to high school with Madam G. I want to know more. Mainly, I want to know what an Orion high school looks like. I mean, do they all have the same school colors? Actually, it's probably like Ferengi rain. There are probably a million different words to describe shades of green on Orion, don't you think? They probably don't even have contrasts in their school colors. They're probably just two different shades of green. I'm sorry, I love these names. Erica, Amrita. I just want to know now, Grace the writer, are there any real world homages, family bits going on here? I'm saying it again. Erica, Rita, come on. Niall can't be the only one. And can I just say once again, in this episode, T'Lyn really kills it. She is so subtle. This is such a great use of that Vulcan stoicism, right? The quiet one in the corner that's really going to wind up causing all the problems, all the trouble. She has the great throwaway lines. I mean, her eagle-eyed typing constantly just slays me. Along with that line, their physical closeness is disturbing. But look, there's actually a little canonizing going on here. Boimler talks about it. No one gets to go to Orion. That she's taking the opportunity to really make a real report. This isn't Archer's time. This isn't even Kirk's time. This is after the Dominion War, and people still don't know much about Orion culture. And here's T'Lyn doing the galaxy a service, and what does she do? She gets so much of it down. She gets so many cultural insights about Orions, and then she flips away her pad like a disgusted Klingon doing bookkeeping. It's one thing for the Vulcans to be so damn secret after 200 years of being allies and co-founders and first contact mates. It's totally fitting for everything Orion to be so damn murky still. And Mariner, for once, has not the lion's share of this episode. She's back in the background. She is so subdued and yet so supportive. And she's so normal and so patient. Patient enough to build up that dagger in the same spot. Oh, I'm sorry, is it over here? That dagger in the same spot 5 times? That's such a perfectly subtle build. It's such a comic bit. And yet it plays into character. I mean, only true friends would last through 5 dagger stabs in the same spot. And finally, almost on the same par as we finally go to Orion, we finally get a Brotherford plot. Am I right? And how did we not see that term coming? It is so overdue. I think that's a good sign of how overdue we are. That was sitting there waiting to be used. I mean, way better than Roimler. Okay. I have a couple more lines. I can't resist here. On the Orion side, all I have is my stink. That's good. Also, good on Tendi to apply those mad science skills and defend herself by coming up with a counteragent to pheromones. Yay, Tendi. That'll show him Starfleet power. Okay, also on the non-Orion side, regarding the Chalnoth use of, or non-use of Federation data, and why? So nuanced and thorough. I'm sorry I laughed out loud. So yeah, we learned so much about Orions in this episode. This really is, when you step back, this is the Orion episode for the entire damn franchise so far. Really. Pound for pound, minute for minute. And we're only talking about, what, 23 minutes of that. But aside from just, the cultural database, the mistress of the winter constellations here and her warrior queen mother, I mean, throwing the titles around, having that dynamic going, this is the most fun. This is the most into this dynamic since we had the daughter of the 5th house, the holder of the sacred chalice of Reeks, and the heir to the holy rings of Beta Z. I mean, we're back on that level here. And you can just say, oh, it's just animation. It's only 25 minutes. But this is really a landmark episode on all the levels, on all the feels. I'm just saying kudos Mike, kudos Grace, kudos everybody who had a Bob, everyone who had a hand in mounting this episode. It really is a landmark. And apart from all that, a totally separate page here. Just the idea of having Mariner use the term post-scarcity is going to send thousands of people Googling madly. And that alone should win a Peabody Award. Same thing with Rutherford using the word aphorisms. Okay, but it's in the ballpark. Oh, and don't forget, after a 1-episode absence, we have the return of the Agonizer ship mystery aliens. And again, the question returns, are they really wiping out those crew members too? Or just destroying the ships and doing something with the humanoids? But nope. Klingons, Romulans, and now Orions. What is the motive? What is the mystery? Stay tuned. I mean, it's interesting. that in this case, the mystery ship let itself be pursued before it stopped and turned and attacked. That's different. Oh, one more thing. We go to Orion before we go to Teller Prime? Come on, Mike. Okay. Okay. Maybe this is a good place to take a breath and sign off on this second opinion. Well, what did you think? What did you think about what I thought? Hey, here's your chance. Please comment below, would you? Share what you want to say. Hey, look, and while you're at it, like and subscribe us, okay? Boost the signal. Hey, look, I dare you to subscribe for some Star Trek sanity. Best of all, if you appreciate the Dr. Trek perspective and everything out of Trekland, I invite you to go over and take a look at all of our podcasts, like the Trek Files, our live streams like Trekland Tuesdays Live, and sure, the rest of the channel, the rest of the Second Opinions, and even Cadet Alice and Dr. Trek Talk Prodigy. All the live events and our experiences like Star Trek's Trekland Trek Tours, and of course, Portal 47, your backstage minicon all year long. All of that is at LarryNemecek.com. Our TeePublic store, too. We even have a Patreon. Trek well, everybody.